everyone, Alex at Coram Farm. We are a year 4 Oklahoma flower farm that sells retail market bouquets from our roadside stand. And in today's video, I'm gonna make a bunch of you mad at me because we're talking about the top 5 flowers that I refuse to grow on our flower farm, and I want to explain to you why. And so the specifics of the flowers are important, but more importantly, the takeaway I want you to have from this video is how to make these sorts of assessments on what you're going to grow on your farm and what you're not going to grow, and things to think about, questions to ask yourself, because particularly right now in January, we're all crop planning, we're dreaming about our farms, we're making our plans, and this is a really good time to make an honest assessment of your grow list and your crop list so that you're not wasting time, you're not wasting labor and money and row space in your farm by growing things that you don't need to be growing. So we're going to talk about them. You can get mad at me, that's fine. But what's more important is if you are growing one of these flowers that I'm talking about and you satisfy the checklist of why it's important for you to grow it on your farm and it's profitable for you, then I fully support you growing that flower. But more often than not, I think most of us have grown or are growing flowers that is a waste of space, time, money, all of the above, and we need to slash it from our grow list and kind of also emotionally get over that it's maybe not the best flower to grow for a profitable flower farm. That does not mean that you can't grow these flowers in your private garden or that you can still love these flowers, but profitable flower farming is a bit ruthless, and you need to have that mentality and attitude when designing your crop plan and your crop list that maybe would be different than how you think about a private garden, a raised garden, stuff that you grow for enjoyment. So let's dive into my top 5 no flowers. These aren't necessarily in any particular order of personal hatred, but we're going to go through them, explain to you my thought process on how I came to a no. And you can also ask those same questions with your own crop list and maybe even specifically about these flowers if you are growing them. Just a reminder, we grow in Oklahoma, which is zone 7B. So the zones only tell you how cold we get, it doesn't tell you how hot we get. And so even though we're a zone 7, we are surface of the sun, hot and dry in the summer, a lot like Texas. We're not as humid as some of the southern states, but we definitely get just as hot. And so that is a big factor also in determining our grow list, is not just how cold we get for some of these flower choices, but how miserable our summer conditions can be. So let's jump right in. Number 1 is hold your breath, hold your rage. We will never grow dahlias on our flower farm. We have before, just to say I tried it, but it is a big fat no for us. And let's talk about why. First up, cost. Dahlia tubers are very expensive, especially get started. Obviously, once you get to a certain inventory and they multiply with their tubers, you kind of can get ahead of it, but it's a pretty expensive startup cost. Even if you're buying wholesale clumps from a wholesaler, you're still talking about like $3 to $5 a clump. When you're buying them in clumps that are being imported from the Netherlands and other places, you have a higher risk of broken necks, fungal disease, gall is a big issue from imports. And so even though you're getting a cheaper tuber price, you are playing a big gamble on some of those other issues. If you're buying domestically, because dahlias are a huge craze right now, the price has gone up significantly. Then when I started growing dahlias just for fun, like my mom and I love them, I think we were paying like $3, $4 a tuber for even some of the fancier ones. And now the prices are like $10, $20 for some varieties for one tuber, which is nuts. So the startup cost is quite a lot if you're a newer grower. Another reason is the space. Dahlias take up a lot of space. You plant them at closer to 9 to 12 inches. For us, we want to do farther because of humidity and airflow and all of those sorts of like funky issues we can get in the summer here in Oklahoma. So they take up a lot of space. If you're doing an analysis on, let's say you have 30 feet, how many plants you can fit and then how many stems they give you, is going to be not as many as if you had planted snapdragons or sunflowers Those are cheaper also to put in the ground. So they take up a lot of space. And for some of you that are growing in a large backyard, or you only have a quarter acre, we're not talking about acres of farm, that takes up a lot of space for you. Another reason is labor. Dahlias are very high labor. They, you have to hand plant them, but you also have to dig them. You have to clean them. You have to divide them. You have to store them properly. And a lot of people don't have easy infrastructure to be storing them at the proper temperature and humidity. So then they experience a lot of loss going into the next year. And so they have to rebuy. And so you're losing profitability there. But they're a high labor, especially if you're growing a lot of them. That is a big task. And I hear on all the flower farming podcasts, all over Instagram in the fall, of everyone complaining and moaning about the labor of the big dahlia dig. And it's exhausting, it's messy, it's dirty, it's high labor. I'm not interested in doing that because it's just Eric and I. The yield on dahlias, how many stems you get per plant, is not that high compared again to if you were to do analysis on how many stems and what you could sell it for if you planted like even zinnias, again, snapdragon, statice, sunflowers, celosia, anything that's a summer flower that would bloom at the same time that's going into that same row space. The tubers are only giving you, a certain amount of cuts, particularly if you're not growing the right varieties either. If you're growing a lot of dinner plates or ones that, are huge, that don't send up quite as many stems maybe as like a smaller ball variety, you're not getting that many per plant. And then another reason is bugs love dahlias. They're very prone to bug pressure. And Oklahoma is biblical in its summer bug pressure. The amount of grasshoppers we have and thrips and cucumber beetles just are native here practically. We have so many cucumber beetles. And so you're left with a couple options, which again are high labor. You can be spraying a ton, which we don't love to do because we have a lot of bee activity and other wildlife. We're trying not to be too heavy-handed on the sprays, which then means often you are organza bag covering the dahlias, which 100% I'm never doing from a labor standpoint. Think about the time that costs you, because labor and time has a value on it, of putting little baggies on all of these buds when we're selling a retail mixed market bouquet from a roadside stand. We're not selling flowers to an event florist in a downtown metropolitan area and charging top dollar for that stem. I can't get away with a $5-6 stem dahlia in our flower stand after all of that effort and labor that I explained goes into it, and I'm bagging it. It's nuts. So dahlias are beautiful. I grow them in our private garden just to get the 2 or 3 unmarred stems that I can get from them, and I enjoy them myself, and that's it. The last thing with dahlias, I'm sure I could make a whole video, maybe we will make a whole video about, assessing if dahlias are right for you. Another issue, my mind just went blank for a second. Another issue is you need to listen to your customers, and our customers remark all the time, primarily about how long our flowers last. That is a big selling point for us. It's what our customers, I hear on repeat so often, is how long the flowers lasted. And so from a brand perspective, it would be unwise of me to add a flower that has a much shorter vase life than any of the other flowers that are going to be in their bouquet. And that would also be the most expensive flower in the bouquet. And so I'm going to run this. Eric says I should run this experiment on our Facebook, and I think I'm going to. But if I posted and I asked our customers, would you rather have one dahlia stem, which I'd have to charge like $5 or $6 for, or 3 sunflowers, which we charge about, give or take, $2 a stem, which would you rather have? My bet is hands down the sunflowers are going to win for multiple reasons. The vase life is super long on our locally grown sunflowers, and it's 3 more stems of flowers. And so you just feel like you're getting a much bigger value. It's like when the chip bag is like all the way full versus smaller for what you paid for it. You just feel like you're getting more value. It's a bigger bouquet in your vase to enjoy at home, and you get to enjoy it for longer. That's what our customers want. And so adding a shorter vase life flower doesn't match our brand. And I don't think ultimately it will make our customers as happy. And if I substituted in that space sunflowers, because sunflowers are so quick turnover, I could probably get 2 or 3 successions of sunflowers in that same bed to sell all season, then that one bed being planted in April, maybe starting to bloom in July and getting it for like 6 to 8 weeks at the end of summer into fall to sell those flowers. That's just, it's a waste of space for our beds in what we could be planting. So dahlias are a big fat no. And I think personally, if you are in a very hot climate, very bug prone climate, and you're a bit more rural, I think you should be pretty ruthless about deciding whether you're going to sell dahlias or not, and if that would be a wise choice for you, while recognizing that you're going to have FOMO on Instagram come August and September when all the northern growers are drowning in their dahlias. I get it. I get it, but no for dahlias. Next one is, and I see this on the Facebook groups a lot, next one is roses. So, thinking not the like classic Valentine's Day red roses, but typically what you hear talked about are like garden roses, floribunda roses, think David Austin, heirloom roses, those sorts of things. It's important to ask yourself, who is your customer and what are you selling? Or how are you selling? We don't sell wholesale to florists, we sell retail. So roses make no sense. Roses are expensive. They take up a lot of real estate. They take a lot of labor, and it's a very short vase life. So none of those things are conducive to a retail market bouquet at a roadside stand. I personally would also make the argument that selling roses is going to be a very high lift, even in the wholesale market, because roses ship so well and they can buy them for relatively inexpensive on the wholesale market of roses that are grown completely blemish free, absolutely beautiful in big greenhouses. And so there's a reason why there are specialized rose farms in our country, and they also have to work very hard to be profitable. If you've ever followed like Grace Rose Farm and stuff, she talks about how it's very hard to sell roses profitably on the domestic side of things. So as beautiful as roses are, I have, I think, 9 or 10 David Austin roses in our raised garden, which you guys have seen if you've watched our much earlier videos. I love roses. They're beautiful. I put them in our personal garden to enjoy. But the standard threshold to meet for a wholesale rose cut or a retail is so much higher than we can achieve in Oklahoma with our heat, with our bugs, with our fungal issues that can get on the leaves, the vase life problems, just the high labor it is to harvest them and strip them and all of that stuff. It doesn't make sense. So roses are beautiful. I love to put them in an arrangement, maybe, in my home to enjoy from my personal garden. But when I account for all of these factors, the same ones I mentioned with dahlias, it's just not going to come out as profitable for us. So we're not going to grow them. So no to roses. Next up, and I get asked about this one a lot. Next one up is lilies. Lilies, I'm a little less on the like extreme no end of things like I am with dahlias and roses for our farm. But for us, again, talking about how we think through things, lilies are a no for multiple reasons. One, we'd grow them in crates, and I'm just personally not that interested in a lot of crate growing. We don't grow our tulips in crates. They go in our big raised bed. If you saw that video, we don't have the infrastructure in our tunnel to have the crates lined up to take up that tunnel space, which I think would make for a better lily than if they were out in the field in a crate. So we don't have that real estate. I don't really want, as a budget item, to have to buy more bulbs than we already do, because we do tulips, ranunculus, and anemones. Bulbs can be pricey, so that's just another bigger cost for us that I don't want to add. But the biggest factor for me is, and lilies are beautiful, so don't get too mad, lilies translate to more grocery store for me. We want to grow flowers that either look so much better than you would ever get at a grocery store, like sunflowers. You go to a grocery store and you see sunflowers at Walmart and they're the saddest, most pathetic things you've ever seen. A locally grown sunflower is noticeably better. Or we grow things that you're just never going to see at a grocery store typically. Like you're not going to see status and lisianthus and ranunculus and all of that stuff. So it's exciting. It's different. They can't get it. You can get lilies, oriental lilies, stargazer lilies. You can get Asiatic lilies. You can get all of those at the grocery store. You know, it's not as exciting. So I want flowers through our marketing and branding to sell something different. So that's the reason why we're just not going to do lilies. You know, oh gosh, what just fell? Startled me. Lily just fell from my cabinets. Back at my lily hatred. I'm just not interested in it. You need to assess the cost, the labor, the space it's taking up. Maybe in the future I changed my mind, but right now lilies for us would bloom in like May and June, and I feel like we're dialing in the flowers that make up our bouquets for those months. I like growing them. They're profitable for us. So I'm not really interested in adding flowers to our list. I'm more interested in like really refining our crop plan for what we've learned how to grow really well, rather than adding new things. The lilies are a no for us. Number four, I've lumped kind of together in one phrase instead of breaking it up into the individual flowers. But number 4 for us is what I'm calling spring filler. So examples of that would be nigella, bachelor button, orlea, feverfew, the ones that, you know, are classified as cool flowers. You either planted them in the fall or early spring. They bloom for you. And for us, it would be May. In colder climates, it'd probably be closer to June is when those would bloom. We don't grow filler. I don't want to give it the row space and real estate. It's the same amount of labor. Sometimes it's even higher labor. Bachelor buttons take an annoyingly long time to harvest for the dinkiest little flower that you can't charge very much for. It doesn't make a bouquet seem fuller. It's just filler, but it's not purposeful filler because it takes a lot of stems to make it seem even impactful. You spend all that time harvesting it. Same with nigella. Feverfew stinks, like smell-wise to me. I don't like it. So I would rather, again, I think my customers would ask for one more ranunculus in their bouquet versus maybe 2 or 3 of these fillers. They would want as many focal or big blooms as I could give them versus extra small dinky. I understand if you're selling to a florist, a lot of florists absolutely love filler and that's what they want to buy. That's a completely different assessment that you're making than I am as a retail market bouquet farm from a roadside stand. So you got to be asking yourself those questions of who are you selling to? Why are they coming to buy from you? And are you wasting your time with a high labor flower that's really ultimately not pulling its weight? And you can watch some of our other videos of my arguments of why I think you don't need a lot of varieties in a bouquet. I talked about that in our last video, which is all of our $25 bouquet recipes from last year. And you can see how few varieties we put in each bouquet. And except for a couple Sundays over the summer, we sold out every weekend and no one ever asked me about filler flowers. In fact, they just talked about all of the focals. That's why they came out. So I would rather do, let's say, another row of snapdragons, another succession of snapdragons, than I would filling it with nigella and bachelor buttons and that sort of thing. So spring filler, that extra fluff, not gonna do it, not interested. And last one is another bigger category, and that is perennials in general. So I will say I'm gonna take peonies off the list because I don't know it's a perennial, but peonies are great. We're still trying to figure out if we're gonna, expand ours, how ours are gonna do. We had a huge weed and grass problem because again, that's what our issue is in Oklahoma. That's why Oklahoma is entirely ranches, because we have great pasture. We have great pasture grass. We have a lot of local grasses that are impossible to kill. And so our peony field is TBD right now on what's going to come back and how it's going to do. But objectively, if you can grow them, peonies are great. They come back year after year. They're really strong, hardy. You can charge a lot. People are obsessed with them. So I'm pro peony. I would love to be able to figure out how to grow them profitably better on our farm. We're working on that. But peonies, love. All the other perennials, we're not going to do. And the reason we're not going to do them is kind of what I just said. People, I think, can sometimes do an overly simplistic analysis of like, it's exhausting buying seeds each year and flipping rows and planting annuals. I just want to plant once and be done. And it's like, I kind of laugh because what about watering and weeding? And if you're in an area that, has higher rust and other like fungal or bacterial issues, you're having to spray, you're having to prune. That's still labor that you're doing. And yeah, if you're in a northern climate where some of these are more, I keep saying local, but that's obviously not the right word, you guys, my brain today. Native is what I'm trying to say. If you're in a place where some of these grow a bit more naturally or a bit more natively, the forcing pressure of growing them is going to be less. In Oklahoma, we don't have a lot of like beautiful, more naturally growing perennials. Again, we have a lot of pasture and prairie. And so we have harsh sun, we have high fungal issue, we have high bug pressure, and things require so much labor to keep clean and nice and healthy, not so stressed by our heat. And so a perennial is not that simple equation where I put down some landscape fabric, plant the perennial, and everything's like dollar signs and profit thereafter. That's not the case with perennials here. And I would rather, again, doing that assessment of how many stems can I cut from this plant, this row of plants, and sell them for in a retail environment, not to event florists. I'm not selling twigs in my bouquet that like an event florist might love red twigs. I'm not going to make as much money than, again, if I planted 2 successions of snapdragons in that row, or 2 or 3 successions of sunflowers, and Eric has a tractor and we can flip it and till it and use a seeder and move on. That actually ends up being lower labor, higher profit and sales for what our customers want than, I planted a lilac bush and in theory, in 3 to 5 years, it's going to give me a lot of stems and I don't have to do much labor. I just plant it and forget it. That's just not the case for us. If you are in a climate where that is the case, then again, back to what I said in the beginning of this video, that's a question you're asking yourself. Is this perennial truly easy, or is it actually much higher maintenance when I start, if I were to write down a list of like every time I have to do something with that plant or that crop, and you start listing it out, you can start seeing whether it truly is a low labor option for you. So those are the 5 big no's. If you ever wondered, like, why doesn't she grow this? Why doesn't she grow that? These are the questions we're asking. And the biggest ones are, who is your customer and what do they truly want? When you are trying to be a professional flower farm, you really have to work hard of taking yourself out of the equation, because this is not a personal garden for you. Set aside time for that. Absolutely, we have that. But you're selling to a customer and you're selling the customer what they want. And so you need to be able to defend your crop list that you grow as something your customers want to buy and are asking for, not what you loved to see on Instagram or you saw in a beautiful coffee table book and you want to experience that flower. That's not the mind of a flower farmer. That's personal and hobby growing. It's just different. So you need to be asking that of yourself. And then you need to be very honest about the labor it takes for each flower, and is it really pulling its weight? Some will pass the test because you might be selling to people that are willing to charge what you need to charge for that stem because of all that labor. Some of you, especially I would argue those of you in a hotter climate in a more rural environment, it's not going to pass the test, and so you're going to have to be really honest with yourself. And so just go through those things. Write down your whole crop list. And then write down everything that goes into that flower. Make sure that you're charging the appropriate amount and ask yourself, is it carrying its weight on your farm? And if it's not, just take it out. It's going to be okay. I promise you. Our bouquets sell out with 1 to 4 varieties in the bouquet. We didn't have any that had more than 4 varieties. And that one was just in the summer because there are a lot of fun, easy to grow focals that we can put in there. So just be honest, be ruthless. I promise this is going to make you profitable faster. And it's also going to prevent burnout. I know that when you're crop planting and dreaming in the winter, it truly is fun to look at the seed catalog, to dream, to think of all these flowers because you love flowers, you want to be around flowers. I do too. But when you actually, it comes to be July and you planted 15 summer annuals, that's when burnout happens because that's a lot to manage. It's a lot to harvest and treat differently and keep that in your mind of post-process handling and the different harvesting. And then you're trying to make recipes so that you use everything because you don't want to be wasteful. And it just becomes too much. And so my encouragement based on experience is to be ruthless with your list, to try to take some emotions out of it, and to be honest about why that flower is on your list. And I would argue that all of us could probably reduce our lists by like 30% at this point. I feel like I'm getting close because we're only at about 14 varieties for the whole year. That means probably like 3 or 4 in each season that I'm kind of at the end of cutting. But when we started and I didn't have this advice, I totally did the like standard floret thing, which was like grow 67 varieties. It was overwhelming. I didn't need them. And like from year 1 now to year 4, I've just been like cut. And because of that, we've also gotten better at growing the things that we keep growing because I have the mental capacity and time to really focus on growing excellent versions of those flowers instead of this very overwhelming juggling of so many varieties at once. So hopefully you're not too mad at me because again, if you go through the list and some of these flowers pass the test for you, then you should grow them. And I truly hope that you enjoy that profitability and it goes great for you. My guess is more of you probably can take some of these off your list and it would go better for you. But thank you for watching, guys. If you like our content, like it, subscribe, comment. Oh, this is what I want to do this year because so many of you do watch our videos to the end and we so appreciate it and I hope the video is helpful. But I like to give a secret word out and you guys can put it in the comments because then it's fun getting to know all your various names of you guys that do watch us all the way through. So the secret word or emoji for this video is the stop sign. So put the stop sign emoji in the comments because I want you to pause here and stop with your crop planning and kind of go through this exercise of defending every flower that you're growing before you finalize your crop plan or heaven forbid you are adding more to your list. Stop and go through this checklist and then you'll feel really confident, I think, and excited and ready to have a really great season and not get burnout or overwhelmed or all of that. So thank you guys. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. We'll see you in the next video and don't hate me. I do like those flowers. I'm just not going to grow them. Bye guys.